What happens when your pet's flight get canceled and you're already on the plane to the other side of the world? That's exactly the kind of situation Carmen from Ferndale Pet Travel has had to solve. After 16 years of managing pet relocations out of Hong Kong, she's here with us today to tell us what goes on behind getting your fur baby from A to B. I'm Nat, and this is Ferndale Tales.
My name is Carmen. I have been working for Ferndale for almost 16 years now, and I'm the pet shipping manager for the Hong Kong office.
So, Carmen, how did you first get started and why did you choose Ferndale?
So, how I kind of started in this industry, I used to actually work in the F&B assistant kind of secretary role. And on the side, my hobby is baking. And I got into pet baking, like baking for my own animals, making birthday cakes for friends and stuff. So I opened it up online baking shop for pets back in 2000, I think it was 2005. And then it eventually turned into a actual shop. I opened up a cafe in 2008. And after 2 years, I kind of got overwhelmed. And so we move on from that. And then the first job I come across when I type on the internet was pet related job in my area. And then that's when Ferndale kind of came up on my first search. And at that time, Stacy owned it Ferndale. So I started off as a pet relocation coordinator, and that was from 2010. So that was 16 years ago.
Wow, you've been working with Ferndale for 16 years.
Yeah, that's quite a long time. Yeah.
So before you worked with Ferndale, did you realize how detailed the relocation process is?
Yes, I do actually, because I did when we moved from New Zealand to Hong Kong, I did my own pets shipments. So apart from booking the flight, I didn't do, but most of the paperwork and even applying for the Hong Kong import permit during the clearance on arrival, I did everything myself. So I kind of have the concept of, you have to have all the boxes ticked, everything needs to be correct for them to travel. So that was already I already kind of had that experience.
Okay, do you want to talk
Yeah.
about your experience with Ferndale? Because I understand you also did a flight with your own pet.
Yeah, I did the flight recently because we moved from Hong Kong to Australia last year. So we bought Luna and Pizza. Luna is our dog, and Pizza is our little cat. So I handled the moves, everything from Hong Kong to Melbourne. But that, yeah, booking everything was easy. But the most stressful part for that it was the 10 days quarantine, like, not able to see them for sure. Yeah. So
And how was that like? Was it worrying for you having your pets fly for the first time?
the flying, not so much. I mean, because I actually crate trained them like a year ahead of time. So I did a lot of like training with them, so prep them properly before the flight. So I know they will handle quite good, like in the crate traveling. Because I actually even put the crate into my car and then put them inside, drive around, do all the practice run. So they're used to that. But I think it was the most unexpected was that 10 days during the quarantine on arrival in Australia.
You missed them, did you?
Yeah, they didn't do very well in that 10 days, I must say.
Oh.
It's a whole other situation that I can't, prepare them for.
Mm. So for cats, any advice for traveling?
For cats, I put a lot of his usual stuff like his blankets and all the same bedding that he's been using, and I also put my son's T-shirt because like my cat loves my son. It's like he's the favorite person in the house. So I did put like his T-shirts in there as well, just for comforting for the flights. And I think it's really, but my cat was actually pretty chill, like a chill cat. Yeah. So, but it's really depending on what, how different cats react differently, but especially like some that does not actually like to leave the house at all. So those one you might need to speak to the vet and see if there is like anti-anxiety medications that they can use prior to travel.
So, for our viewers who are just starting to
Mhm.
think about traveling with their pet, how far in advance should they realistically be thinking about this? Are we talking weeks, months?
Months, definitely. So I would recommend at least 6 months plus, so that at least you can, like, at least getting the paperwork, vaccinations all ahead of time, so that you not come into a rush and all of a sudden find out something is needed for a certain country.
What you're saying is it will take months of preparation. Okay.
Definitely, yeah.
Okay. I think that's really helpful. I think a lot of people assume it's really more of a last minute friendly than it is actually.
Yes, definitely not like passengers that you can just go to the airport and buy a ticket and fly in the next 2 hours.
Okay, now here's where I want to get into the real stuff. Even when
Mm.
someone does everything right, they plan ahead, they check all the boxes, what's one unexpected challenge that can still pop up and completely
Weather.
derail things?
Weather, especially in the countries like Hong Kong, like in the Asia area, there was like typhoon season, and that is something is unexpected. You can plan everything all ready to go, but then something happened, then the flight delay or cancelled, then everything on a standstill.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think you just really can't account for everything, can you?
Yeah, you cannot. Yeah, so you get all the boxes ticked. I mean, like even when my animals travel, that was one of my worries because we did travel in mid of summer. That's when this was typhoon season. Yeah,
Oh.
so that was. I'll be like looking at the weather forecast for like the week ahead just in case something is coming up.
And I imagine that's where having someone like you in our corner really makes a big difference, right?
Yeah, so we kind of like just warned you ahead of time something might be expected to happen. So and then come up with a plan B.
Okay. So, speaking of experience, you've clearly seen a lot, I'm sure. So, is there one thing that you always double check no matter how many times you've done this? Like, what's your non negotiable?
Paperwork. Have to double check all the paperwork and making sure everything is correct on paperwork. And also, always the day before flight, we always double check the flight status just to be sure.
The paperwork is, I think, something people don't really realize. Even if it's like a really small thing, it ends up
Yeah,
being
one
everything, isn't it?
digit can make a big difference. Yeah.
Okay. So, now that the pet has landed,
Mm.
they've made it to their destination. What does the
Mm-hmm.
process actually look like? Is the owner's job done or is there still a lot happening?
It's still a lot happening that's involving the airline and also like the involving clearance party as well. So there's paperwork you need to collect certain paperwork from the airline to start the clearance process. So it's depending on which port and how you're traveling. So there is like two ways of traveling: is excess baggage and cargo. So cargo is definitely way more paperwork to be done on arrival, and that's why we usually recommend clients to use the travel agents on the other end, so everything kind of handled professionally, and so can get the pets kind of released in a timely manner.
Oh, okay. I don't think people really realize what goes on into that final mile.
Yeah.
So, in your words, what do you think? What's the biggest difference between a smooth relocation and a stressful one? And where does having an expert like us make the biggest impact?
So the stressful one will be for us kind of taking the job halfway. That when maybe some other agent have halfway done it, or a client's half done something, and then we're taking over kind of halfway when everything kind of didn't do it correctly from start. Then you have to explain to the client, you have to restart everything, we have to redo everything. I think that's why having an agent would make a difference in pet relocations. Then everything from start to finish. There is no mistake.
Oh, okay. What's your most memorable shipment you've ever done while you're working with Ferndale?
So one of the most memorable and definitely the most challenging one, I think, was during COVID. I was arranging a relocations for a pet, a French bulldog to UK. And on the day of travel, the airline actually canceled the flight out of Hong Kong. So there was no flight out that week. And to make things more kind of urgent, the clients actually left the day before the dog, and the dog was in our care. So we kind of have to come up with an alternative plan quickly before the clients land into UK, so I can talk to her like right away what's to expect. So having to kind of explain to the client with the limited option at that time, and there was an alternative flight, but then the flight was almost three times more. But luckily, the clients was actually quite understanding at that time, and we kind of we were able to align with the new plan quite quickly. So and I managed to get the dog shipped out like in 2 days. So yeah, I think that was the most stressful situation, and also actually quite a rewarding one because with a very limited availability at that time, and we managed to get the dogs out still before everything kind of completely shut down in Hong Kong.
Lastly, and this is my favorite kind, what's a moment that stuck with you? Something that reminded you this is exactly why I do this work.
I think seeing animals going home, reunion with the family, like especially we work in the office, we don't get to see what's going down, like how our driver will handle the animals. They get to do the pick up and checking them in at the airport. So like for us seeing clients like sending us update pictures on their arrival, it really makes reminds you kind of why you do this.
Okay, that is such a perfect note to end things. So thank you so much for your time and for being here and
No
talking to me.
problem.
And
Thank
for
you for
everyone
having me.
listening, if yeah, no worries. So for everyone listening, if you're planning to travel with your pet, definitely check out Ferndale Pet Travel. Links are in the bio in the YouTube description, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Bye.